Hi guys, Happy New Year to everyone and welcome to our little talk session from Open Source Society of IIIT UNA. I am Aryan and today we'll discuss what open source exactly is and why you should switch to it. What is Linux, what is WSL and open source in Windows. So let's get started. Open source programming at the very basic level means writing a piece of code that others can freely modify, and open source softwares are those whose source code is freely accessible and modifiable by everyone and anyone. Unlike closed source softwares like MS Office, the author of the open source softwares makes the source code publicly accessible so that anyone and everyone can read it, learn from it, copy it, and share it. Open source is not only for computer programmers but for every simple internet user. For much of the internet was developed using open source technologies like Linux operating system and Apache web server application. To be an open source developer, all you need to do is be comfortable with some programming language and some minor debugging skills. Then create an account on GitHub and look up for some open source repositories you think you'll be comfortable working on. And then when you find such a repository, try solving some problems on that code. You can even hunt for bugs and try to debug them. And voila, you are an open source developer. Isn't that cool, right? Well, anyways, now you might be thinking why you should switch to open source. What's so cool about it? Well, there are indeed a ton of reasons for that, beginning with open source development is decentralized and collaborative, which means relies on a community for development rather than a community or rather than a company or an individual, which means open source softwares are bound to be cheaper, flexible, and easy to use. Besides, open source softwares have large community support. There's no telling when the company withdraws support for a product, but the community support never dies. And for example, you can see Canonical is going to withdraw support for Ubuntu 18.04 LTS later this year, but community support would go on forever and ever and ever. Anyways, being a part of a community is a great way to stay updated also, and having a community support development of your product reduces all chances of bugs in the product. For in the words of Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux operating system, more the number of eyeballs, shallower become the bugs. Well, the list can go on forever, but I think you got the point. Now let me brief you about Linux, the most celebrated open source operating system. Linux is one of the best open source operating systems, and it comes in various distros like Ubuntu, Kali Linux, Arch Linux, Fedora, Debian, etc. etc. Even macOS is somewhat inspired by Linux. Now, you might be wondering what is so good about the Linux and why you should switch to the so-called cool Linux and leave the good old Windows behind. Well, Utkarsh sir is here to enlighten us for the beauty of Linux. Now, Utkarsh sir, over to you. Thank you guys and happy open sourcing. Utkarsh sir, over to you.
Hey, so Utkarsh is here. We will talk about open source tech, especially Linux, and why you should especially switch to Linux from Windows. And before actually starting about open source and about Linux, you must be sure about why working or why switching to open source is beneficial. Open source technologies let you let you use your code, your software, or your file forever. Other as Aryan Negi recently said that Canonical will withdraw their support from Ubuntu 16.04, but the support will continue from the community. It might not be the same as in the case of Windows 7, as Microsoft gave up their support to Windows 7, you will not be able to use Windows at all if there is any issues. But on the other hand, if you still face some issues in Ubuntu 16.04, you will still be able to use that. So over to you, Utkarsh.
All right. Hi, everybody. And so I think Prashant and Aryan did a very great job informing you about the basics of open source. And what I really want the first years, if since we know the majority of the crowd watching this is from the first year, what I want you to understand is that in the beginning, you might not really understand how you can contribute to open source and how you should use open source. And this was one of the problems with us too. But uh, you just have to start doing something. You just have to begin doing something, and eventually, as you progress, you get to understand. You start understanding how things work, and it's very important as a computer science engineer for you to really understand how things work. Most people simply go on uh, go on building tools and applications from Python and JavaScript, but nobody knows what is going on inside. And things like open source, things like these products, these will help you understand how everything is going to work, how the code is placed for the packages, for the Linux systems. What exactly is Linux and what is the difference? Right now, it might be a little overwhelming for you, and bear with me. So I'm here to tell you about Linux, how you can use Linux. Now, I suppose since everybody is new to programming, uh, most of you are Windows users, and that's why we are trying to explain to you how to use this Linux operating system, Ubuntu Linux operating system. So let me share my screen. Is my screen visible, Prashant? Yeah, I think it's visible, right? Okay, so I hope everybody can see this right now. Uh, okay, so this is the Ubuntu operating system that most programmers use, and uh, and everything in this operating system is open source, meaning that uh, all of this, all of the code that is running behind this is there available on the internet. You can go and study it, you can analyze what it is really. Although as a first year, I will be honest with you, you won't understand most of it, but still, uh, anyway, the thing is, the important thing is, you have so many options in this operating system. You have so many things that you can understand, so many things that you can learn from, which which normally Windows might not offer you. For example, most of the things, most of the programming, most of the operations are done using the terminal. And please, if you want to write this down, I did not know this when I was in the first year. How to open the terminal? Control Alt T. Now, you will have to use the terminal. You will always need to upgrade your, yeah, you'll have to write certain operations and certain commands. So basically, let me just show you what the operating system is basically. This is normally your Windows operating system. Okay? This is what you are accustomed with. A toolbar, and whatever the start bar, wherever you want to go with. But if I tell you about this, your browser is here, and instead of, you don't have a Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, because that's all part of Windows. You are out of the world of Windows, you're out of the world of Microsoft, and you are out in the open, which, like I said, this is something which has been written not by one company. It has been written by so many programmers, and it is a culmination of the efforts of a lot of people. And in terms of functionality, yes, it is almost probably as good as Windows. So this is LibreOffice, and I'll just brief you through what are the available applications here, so you can understand that it's not very different than Windows currently. And okay, you have the file manager here, just like Windows. You have a browser, just like Windows. The only thing different, which is a good opportunity for you to learn, is the terminal. Like I said, you only have to press Control Alt T, which is the shortcut. And yes, now let me tell you why we are focusing on the asking you guys to switch to Ubuntu, because you see Windows is always you see Windows has the thing called updates, a system of updates, and there are so many updates. Always there are continuously updates that are going on and on and on. Even if I go right now, I have my connection property set as metered connection, and that's why, fortunately, there are not a lot of updates right now. But even in the notifications tab, there you go, Windows update, again and again and again. The huge problem here is I don't have the control over my PC. I don't know what is going on. And even if I do, there are so many applications, they will still bombard me with notifications. Of course, I can control them, but there is a level of abstraction in Windows. In Ubuntu or in any Linux distribution, you have the control. You have the control to do anything and to fidget over anything, to fidget over any application, basically edit any application and modify it and run it on your own PC. You can't do that with most proprietary applications, and that is the beauty of open source. Okay. Anyway, so there are two topics here. Let me just wait a minute. Okay. So there are two topics here. One is open source. You should use Linux because it's open source. And secondly, you should use Linux because it is a great opportunity for you to learn the core of programming, learn the core of computer science. Like I said, most people just keep on building applications, and that is not something that I am asking you to do. You can't, if you just build on applications, if you just build ML applications and start doing JavaScript programming, you are simply learning something and using it again. But how everything functions, you have no idea about that. And that a computer science engineer is supposed to know. How do you do that? You need to get into everything. You need to get inside and learn everything. And the opportunity for that will be given by Linux to you. Why do I say that? Is because right now, like I said, right now you will have a list of applications that you are simply using. And if you keep on, yeah, right now you can use these applications. And there will be a time where you will feel like modifying a lot of things. For example, this is the Ubuntu operating system, and let me show you how basically I had modified that. My how I had modified my Ubuntu operating system to make it a little more fancy. I would request Prashant to actually share this link that I'll be putting in. Just one second. This is basically the operating system, how it looked for me. Everything in this is the wallpaper of my operating system. And if you are an Iron Man fan, I know you will love it, so I don't have to explain more to you. So one advantage is customization, and the other advantage is optimization of certain elements that you feel is beyond your control. For example, in my Windows operating system, my battery life lasts for 2 hours. approximately, or 1.5 hours, because it's a 4-year-old laptop. Now I use another distribution of Linux, and I've customized it in such a way that it lasts for 3 to 4 hours, because there are no applications running, there are no background applications running, and it is absolutely minimal to the core. That is why, uh, so this is the level of customization that you can go into once you start to understand how things work, how the customizations that you need to provide are being done. uh, anyway, so this was a bit about Linux and why you should use it. And so I'll give you a link of downloading the VirtualBox VMware, because even though we would definitely like you guys to actually dual boot your PCs, but we are at a remote, we are all not with you right now. So if something goes wrong, there is no way to actually correct your mistakes. Although, yeah. So the best way, the safest way to use Ubuntu right now for beginners is to use VirtualBox. This is now I'll be showing you how you can install VirtualBox. VirtualBox VMware is basically a software. Let me share my screen again. Okay, my screen is visible, right? Uh, yes. So all you have to do is download VirtualBox here, and after installing VirtualBox, you will need to install a link of Ubuntu ISO file. Don't worry about that. We'll give you that. We'll give you that file. We'll give you a link for that. Once you start doing that, all you need to do is actually make a new machine here. Start a new machine and name it like Ubuntu OSS, whatever, and select the version of that, and keep on doing next. The options are selected. They are, you don't have to worry about that a lot. And even though I would like to explain all of that to you, what exactly all these things are, I can't really, because it's beyond a first year's understanding right now, and it's totally understandable. Like I said, eventually you will learn more about subjects like operating system and computer architecture. That's how you will understand how all these things work and what exactly these options mean and why they are selected. So if you want, we can actually, you can ask us if you want to be told in more detail, but it will be a little out of the scope of most first years. So just when you start this, there will be a certain option of selecting the ISO file that I talked about, the file that will be given to you. And see, this is the selection that you need to do. And Ubuntu. I'm sorry about that. Okay, that is embarrassing. Anyway, so where was I? Yeah, I selected the Ubuntu ISO file, and now I have to start it simply. This will begin the installation process. It takes a lot of time right now for this. Oh, I wasn't sharing the screen. This basically it will install your the new operating system on your Windows PC. This is not very difficult, and if anything wrong goes here, it won't damage your PC. So this is the safest way to do right now, to install Ubuntu right now. And I suppose this is my bit. I've talked everything about Linux, and I hope you liked it. And definitely reach out to us if you have any doubts, if you want to know more about it. And please, please, please install Ubuntu. That's all I want to Linux right now.
Thank you, Utkarsh. Utkarsh told you about why and how to use Linux or Ubuntu in your system and how to switch from Windows to Ubuntu. So there are basically a few ways in which you can switch to Ubuntu. One way is that you can just install Ubuntu on your PC and do or dual boot it. So you are switching to Windows and Linux as and when you require it. Second option is, as Utkarsh told you, using a VMware virtual machine. Virtual machine gives you the flexibility and total control over your computer. You do not need to switch from Windows, log out of Windows, and then switch to Ubuntu. You just need to run the virtual machine and you can just start using it. So, but still, there could be a problem such as low machine resources. But of course, virtual machine does not take a lot of resources, but still, you might not want to use virtual machine. So there's another thing that Windows has provided, and that is Windows Subsystem for Linux. So what is it? Windows Subsystem for Linux. Utkarsh showed you the terminal, right? So what usually developers recommend is that you use only the terminal to control your computer. Do not use the GUI. You will be using GUI for most of the applications in the beginning, but you should be refraining from doing that. Why? Because that's how you learn how to tinker with things, how to use commands to do all of your work. And that's how great developers are born, by tinkering things. So what you could do right now is you could install Ubuntu in your system and try to control your system as much as possible with the Ubuntu terminal. But in case you do not want to set up a virtual machine, there is this there's WSL. I'll share my screen. We'll start with the boring part, presentation. So So we'll be discussing about Windows Subsystem for Linux and a few other open source software. So what exactly it is? It is a compatibility layer for running Linux executables. Yes, the terms are a little difficult for a non-user and for a beginner, but you will get to know about that. So all the applications that run on Linux can be run on Windows without actually installing installing Linux. So why couldn't you do it before this? No. Linux files, all the file system of Linux, the executables of the Linux, they're how Linux controls them. You would not be able to run Linux applications on Windows, right? And similarly, you cannot run Windows applications on Linux. There are compatibility issues. So that's why Microsoft built this compatibility layer for running Linux programs on Windows. And right now it uses kind of a virtual machine, but in the latest upgraded WSL2, it features a real Linux kernel inside Windows. So why should you be using that? It is because you will be able to run Linux applications natively on Windows. So you do not need to install Linux on the side, just need to run the application. And the most important part is that you will be able to access all your file system from your Linux system. So you will not need to copy your files into something else. And then there's a lot of issues when you dual boot or use a virtual machine. And with the latest WSL2, you could also use Windows sockets. For beginners, sockets is how a computer connects over a network to other computers. You will be getting to know about that in future when you keep on developing. And what are the advantages of WSL over other things is that it requires very few resources and you can access both Linux and Windows resources. This is a huge benefit. If you are a developer, a little experienced developer, you will understand why it is very important because you might be working for some company or some open source organization where most of the other developers use Linux. For beginners, Most of the developers use Linux as their primary operating system because of various reasons. Most of them explained by Utkarsh, but there are many, many reasons why developers prefer Ubuntu or Linux. So for developers, it is very important mostly to run both Windows and Linux side by side so that they can test their applications on both of them. Mostly it is for compatibility, but it is also very important just for testing, just for making sure that everything works fine on both systems. And there's no performance hit, and it is just like your native Windows. But the limitation is that you will not be able to run most of the applications as you run on native system as GUI, but you will be able to access most of them using the terminal. So I'll share my Windows terminal and how I use WSL. Okay, so this is the Windows terminal. Okay, terminal. The Windows terminal is also an open source tech. Usually, you have PowerShell. Just another minute. I'll share my entire screen instead. So you have the Windows PowerShell. This PowerShell is not open source, but for that you have this terminal. This terminal, Windows terminal, is a newer development from Microsoft, which is open source, and you can run multiple tabs in this. So I've set the default option to be the Ubuntu system, but I could use command prompt and PowerShell and even the Azure shell from this terminal only. And this has a lot of features over other shells. So the whole system is Ubuntu. This actually is Ubuntu. So, and I am accessing the file system of Windows. So you can imagine this. I'm using Ubuntu, but on the Windows file, over the Windows file system. So I could do. I'm actually mounted on my P drive, mm, and everything that you can do on Ubuntu terminal can be done here as well. At least most of the things. So these are most of. This is the most probable reason why you should be using WSL here. Okay, let's switch from Linux to other open source software. Let us start with maybe let's start with LibreOffice. Okay, so Utkarsh has already told you about LibreOffice. I'll still share a little bit more details. I'll show you some screenshots. This is actually this was actually a document, Windows Microsoft Word document, which was edited in LibreOffice and saved as a .odt file. So the most important feature that this gives you is that first it is open source. Next, it provides you very high compatibility with other files as well. For even for Microsoft Word, it will not support its own older files such as .doc. So the newer files from Microsoft Word, they're saved as .docx. So this indicates that they are from the newer versions of Microsoft Word. But most of the newer features, they are not available in that, and they still have compatibility issues. But this LibreOffice systems, they provide very high compatibility between all these files. Similar, this is LibreOffice Calc, which is the alternative to Microsoft Excel for spreadsheets. And I'll show you another thing why open source is important. This. Okay, so LibreOffice allows you to use the whole system for free. But and if you're running it in some production environment, it would give you a warning that this does not support so many people. And they even answer, how can I compile a version without this warning? So they tell you how to compile this without this warning, and they tell you that you can just compile this and create a clone and remove support systems of the organization and use your own name. So they just tell you that you should remove us from any liability and just use your code on your own. So you can imagine this power that you can create your own system just for free, and you can see the code. So this is also a demo for Firefox. If you've never used Firefox, Firefox is based on a different uh, web driver. Web driver, okay, Firefox is different from Chrome. That's the important thing. And one of the biggest reason for using Firefox is that it is not Chrome. So yes, that's a little pointless, but yes. First of all, Firefox is made by Mozilla, and Chrome is, of course, you know about it. Chrome is developed by Google. So the problem is that Google has huge amounts of data from you. So Chrome also faces these privacy issues. On the other hand, Firefox does not care about your data. It tracks. It does not save any cookies. It has privacy settings enabled by default, which you might not even be able to access in Chrome. And one of the biggest advantages of using Firefox is that you are able to enter into the open source environment. You will be able to access all these add-ons, which are open source and which are pretty good. And see this, I'm just accessing the code of the Firefox Android browser. This is it. I can just see everything what the app offers, what exactly is in the app. I can confirm what it is, and is it and I can see what issues are others facing, and I can even check the code inside it and see if I can solve the issue that I'm facing, and I can just contribute to the code. So this is something important. You are able to access the code of the software that you are running. This is truly game changing. Truly game changing. So you know that the developer isn't doing any shading things. You can check it out. You can just fork it and read the license and just use it however the license allows you to run it. So I can just here create a fork, and I also own a fork of the Firefox Android browser, and I can just edit it and use it on my own. And going next to Jitsi Meet. Jitsi Meet is uh, it is an alternative to online conference software such as Google Meet, Zoom, and other such others. I can just create. I do not even need to sign up. I just open the URL and create my own custom URL, some long URL name, and I can start the meeting here. This is as simple as that, and I can also connect my calendar and create a new meeting here. So this is my name, and this is it. A simple interface. It is very customizable, and the important part is that you can host it on your own server for your own organization. But while you're using it for free, you can do a lot of things. It has a lot of granular features. So yes, another important thing for open source software is that most of them, if not all, but 95%, more than 95% of them will provide you granular access in the application. So granular access means very small settings which you will not be able to change in other closed source software. You will be able to change them in these software, and the other 5% you can just look up the code and change it however you want. And this is the reason that most of these software are so customizable. This is because they are built by people like you and me. They work together and realize what features they want, and they just add it. So what happens when you're using a closed source software and you want a new feature? You maybe write a mail or go to the forum and comment there, create a new post there. But the developers may or may not look at that. But what if you're using an open source software? You can just go to their GitHub repository or maybe mail them. You can go to the GitHub repository, you can create an issue, and the people, if more people are interested, they can start working on their own. Or even if you're alone interested, you can work on that all alone. So this is the beauty of open source. You can just do anything that you want without any restriction. There are some restrictions, but most of the cases, you are free to do anything that you want. And this is not an exhaustive list, but this is just a beginning. You can find a lot of open source software that are actually better than their proprietary counterparts, such as VS Code. So Microsoft Visual Studio Code is an open source code editor, an IDE that you can use, and it is used by almost, uh, I mean, most of the developers. It is really that great, and it is all built by people by the open source community. Same as Blender, the VLC media player. I guess it is the most used media player on in the desktop market, and it is completely open source, and it is so customizable, and it is so great at doing what it does. 7-zip is an extraction and compression software that is open source, and it is so awesome. NextCloud is an open source alternative to Google Cloud and Dropbox or OneDrive. We talked to Jan, who is a co-founder of NextCloud, in a first stream. You can look at that stream as well in a YouTube channel. Then Signal. It is termed as the most. It is termed as safest messaging application, and all of its code is out in the open. F-Droid. F-Droid is an open source alternative to the Google Play Store. It it lists out the applications, and all of the applications in F-Droid are open source. So you can look at that. There are so many applications which are actually better than their closed source alternative, and they are used by so many people. And that is the reason you should be consider switching to open source. And there's one more thing. Why is open source considered more safe than closed source software? It was uh, just a few years back, it was said that you still can get malware very easily in your Windows system, but not so easily in Ubuntu or Linux and in any Linux derivative. It is because the whole of the code is visible to everyone. So it is. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but for beginners. But see, the reason here is that since everyone can see the code, everyone can suggest everyone can see what are the vulnerabilities here, and they can try to fix this. So as I think Aryan said, that more the number of eyes looking at your code, the better is the code quality, and more the better is the testing pattern. Same is the case with Signal. It is very safe because its encryption standard is out in the open. You can look at it, you can test it, you can try to break it, but if you are able to do that. So that's how that's why open source is so important. There's another reason. There are open source formats. So what are these? For example, Microsoft Word has their docx format files. These are the document format. So let us say that Windows suddenly stops producing Microsoft Word. So you will not be able to open your document files anywhere. But for open source formats such as RSS, such as XML, I don't think XML, okay, such as RSS, such as Markdown, these are all open source, and you can just create your documents in that format and it will be always available. You can see what is going to be the condition of Flash software. Flash is going to be has been disabled now, and you will not be able to run Flash software on your computer right now. But if it was a open source software, it was an open source format, there would still be a big community around it, and you might still be able to run that with the support of all of those people. So I hope you are able to understand what are the reasons, what are the benefits of open source, and what are the values associated with that. And we are available for a Q&A session. If you want, you can ask your questions in the chat session. We'll be available here for another 10 or 15 minutes. And Utkarsh. Okay, Sarthak has asked what is dual booting and told us about the laptop configuration. So dual booting is, for example, you are using Windows right now. So uh, Windows is just an operating system. You can also install Ubuntu alongside it. So when you start your computer or your laptop, you can just uh, you can switch to any of the operating system. You can either start Windows or you can start Linux. So that's how it works. And you can keep your questions coming. And yes, there are a lot of things uh, that open source offers you. And being a developer, it is very important that you use open source software, that you try to use. So in the beginning, when we all of us started programming, we could not understand a single line of what was there in open source software. But now, as we develop, as we gain more experience, we are able to understand a small part of that code. And as we gain experience, you might be able to uh, give a pull request, give contribute to that code as well. So that's how you become a great developer, by looking at other people's codes. You become a great developer by seeing other people's code and not just writing code. Um, Pankaj asked if dual boot takes RAM of any one from Windows or Linux. So no, what exactly you are doing here is that Windows is an operating system that manages your RAM. Okay? So when you start Windows is managing your RAM. All your RAM would be empty when you close your computer. So similarly, if you dual boot and switch to and use Linux instead of Windows, now Ubuntu is managing all your RAM, and Windows does not take up any part of your RAM when you're using Linux, and Linux does not take up any of your RAM when you're using Windows. Um, Now the dual booting does not slow the processor. They're completely different. Completely different. And if you have any questions, you should join a Telegram group uh, anytime that you wish. And you can ask all your questions related to installation, related to using Linux, related to open source programming uh, in there, and we will try our best to help you out in that. And you should watch our previous stream, which was a couple of months ago, where we talked about how to contribute to open source, and it was related to Hacktoberfest, which you will come to know about later. But you should be watching it. And okay, I think we will be able to answer your questions. If you have the questions coming, Utkarsh, would you like to share your thoughts here?
Uh, no, I think it was amazing whatever you have told, and right, Prashant has really summed up everything there is to know for a first year in open source. And would using Linux will help? Of course, that is what we want you to know, Krishak. And there are a
Yes.
lot of advantages.
How to,
Computer science
um,
engineer, obviously, it is. Oh, help us in placement. Yeah, I mean,
uh,
if you know more about computer science, definitely you know more about what they want you to know. So yeah, it will help you in placement, maybe in some way.
yes, but yes, it's not a prerequisite to become a great developer when by using Linux. You do not compulsorily need to use Linux every time, but it is a great start. It guides you in a lot of things. Actually, when you will be using Ubuntu, we all recommend using Ubuntu as your first Linux distro. There are a lot of Linux distros available. Distros is a short form for distributions. So there are a lot of flavors of Linux available, but Ubuntu has the largest support community and for beginners, and it is very beginner friendly. So one of the main points of using Linux or Ubuntu is that when you will start using it, uh, you will find a lot of problems, a lot of issues, how to do something, how to change something, and this is here you will start searching about it on the web, and this is the beginning of uh, beginning of being a computer science engineer. Computer science engineer are not they need to be great at googling.
That's there's an interesting question from Sarthak that what's the difference between dual booting and using VirtualBox? That's a good question, Sarthak. Basically, in VirtualBox, you are not risking anything, and of course, I'm not saying that dual booting with Ubuntu and Windows is risky, very risky. But sometimes it so happens that there is people select the wrong option sometimes, and that damages what the software of the grub software of the PC. Now, this might be a little over the top for most people, but using VirtualBox means you are basically running an operating system on the Windows PC, and dual booting is way different than that. When you're running Ubuntu, you're not running Windows. It is completely different, and that is the ideal way of running it. But I suppose right now, if we actually go one step at a time, using VirtualBox would be a better option for anyone who's not into that much into Linux or dual booting right now.
And if you've still not understood the difference between exactly dual booting is, imagine you have two laptops. One only runs Linux and one only runs Windows. So actually you're using two different systems, but they're connected by the resources, by the hard drive. Still, it could be a little confusing, but that's the best analogy you could get. And uh, if you're starting with programming, you should be contributing to other people's code and asking others to contribute to your code. This helps you in working together in teams, and it helps you learn how to read other people's code, and it helps other people identify bugs or issues in your code. So when you are doing it together, when you're doing it in groups, you do it pretty well. So if then no other questions, we can end this. But we all recommend you start learning about open source. You start using open source software, and if you have any doubts, you can join our Telegram group and ask us over there. We will be there for any help you need, and very soon we'll be organizing our first hackathon, a first open source hackathon, and we'll be very happy to find the first year over there. And for first year, if you need any interaction, we would be sharing a Google Meet link in, or you should join a voice chat where first year could interact with the finalists and all of the club members. Okay, thank you everyone. We will be ending this live stream now. Thank you, and hope you have a great year